Hello, students. Today we'll come to know about the next part of the chapter. So, what are you anyway? So, let's begin. When the man taps her shoulder, Carol opens her eyes. I have to go to the bathroom, she says. But they are going to serve the meal, the man says. Henry, if she wants out, let her out. She's only a child. Carol grimaces. She is definitely not a child. She is a young lady. Once in the aisle, Carol realizes she has forgotten Amy. Henry Norton hands her the doll. There you go. And don't fall out of the plane now. There's a big hole down there by the toilet. There is not, Carol says. There isn't any such thing. She heads down the aisle with an eye out just in case there is a hole after all. Coming out of the toilet, Carol finds the stewardess. Excuse me, miss, could I sit somewhere else? The woman frowns. Why? I don't like the window. Is that it? Is that the only reason? Yes. Well, yes. I'm sorry, but we don't have time to move you now. We are serving a meal. Ask me later, if you like. After Carol has eaten and had her tray taken, the man says, What are you, anyway? My wife and I were wondering. Carol blinks, sees the man's clear blue eyes, and drops her head. What do you mean? She says. You know, what are you? What race? Now let's analyze this part. So, how do we know she is still a little child at heart? See, when she is woken up by the tap on her shoulder by Henry Norton, she says that she needs to go to the bathroom. And at that time, Henry says that, oh, they are serving meals, so now how can you go? But Henry's wife says that, oh, she is only a child, let her go. Now, how do we know that she is still a child at heart? See, she walks down the aisle and then she returns because she had forgotten Amy. Now, that is a childish behavior that we expect only from a child. And added to that, when Henry says that there is a hole out of the plane, out in the plane before the toilet, when she walks down the aisle, she is looking for a big hole that she may fall into, as Henry had scared her. So now, let's say, how has Henry depicted as the bad character in the story? See, Henry irritates Carol by treating her as a child. He is thrilled by teasing her. He makes her scared of traveling alone and falling through the holes in the plane. He makes her feel uncomfortable with his inquisitiveness. Because, being a racist, he sees her as the other. Carol is so uneasy that she asks to be moved to another seat. She doesn't like to sit over there. So, why do you think Carol responds to Henry's question the way she does? Carol blinks in confusion at the question, with the question word being what instead of who, as if she is an object and not a person. Now, if the question had been Who are you? She would not have been surprised because the question was, what are you anyway? She got a little surprised that why he's asking what? She is not a non living object. She stares at Henry's blue eyes and perhaps, sensing the difference between their appearance, she bends her head trying to make out the implication behind the question. And then she asks him what he means by the question, what? She is growing out of her childlike faith in adults and becoming aware of being seen as different. Now she can understand that somehow there is some difference. What is the impact of Henry's question about race on Carol? Let's see. Carol does not understand the implication of the question, and yet she senses that it is improper. She is no longer the confident young girl flying out of her own. She is a confused child wishing her parents were with her to handle the situation and to explain her what race means. So let's move forward. Carol's mouth drops. Race? What is that? She doesn't understand. Yet she senses that the man is asking a bad question. She wishes her mom and dad were there. They could tell what race meant. That doll of yours is black, Henry Norton says. That's a Negro doll. That's race, Negro. What's your race? The question still confuses her. Put it this way, the man says. What is your father? The question baffles her. What is her father? He is her dad. He is her dad, and every Sunday morning he makes pancakes for the whole family. And lets Carol pour hot syrup on them, and afterwards he tells her stories. Norton leans towards Carol. Say you had a coloring book. What color would you make your dad? I never use just one color. Okay, so what color would you make his face? Brown. And your mother? Carol imagines a blank page. What would she put in her mother's face? She has to put something in there. She can't leave it blank. I don't know. Sure you do, Mrs. Norton says. How would you color your mother's face? Yellow? Carol sees Mr. and Mrs. Norton look at each other. Is your mother Chinese? Mrs. Norton asks. No. Are you sure you'd color her yellow? No. What else might you color her? What else? Carol feels ashamed of her stupidity. A tear races down her cheek. Red, she says finally. Red? You can't color a face red. Is your mother white? Is she like me? Her face? Is it the same color as mine? Yes. And your father's brown? Carol nods. When you say brown, do you mean he is a Negro? Yes, of course, her father is a Negro. If Mrs. Norton wanted to know all along if her father has a Negro, why didn't she just ask? So let's analyze this part now. So what we've noticed that how does the ensuing dialogue between Henry and Carol show that they are talking from different point of view? Their point of view are not matching. What Henry wants to mean, Carol is not able to understand properly. Henry is focusing on identifying Carol's parents as being of African or Chinese descent, based on the colors she may use to color their face in a drawing. Whereas Carol sees her father as a person, not as a representative of a race, and would color her mother's face yellow or red because she fancied it, and not as representing a race. So, why is it important for Henry to know that Carol's mother is white? He wants to make out if Carol is of mixed parentage. What had Betty Norton said about the mixed breed when Carol pretended to be sleeping? She had said that being mixed parentage was unfair to the children for people did not accept them. They neither they are neither one thing nor the other. She was talking about Carol as if she were a thing, not a child, a person. So that is the point which is more important. Here what we find that they are talking about thing, means they are not considering Carol as a human being, as a child. So somewhat their behavior is rude. It's not cannot be said to be of decent behavior. What is the irony in this situation now? Betty may say she doesn't mind them being mixed, but she and her husband are making an issue of it, needling the child while knowing they are making her feel uncomfortable. So that is the main problem. They are making Carol uncomfortable, even at the expense of her tears. Now let's move on to the next part. So, you are mixed, Mrs. Norton says. You are a mulatto. Carol's lips quivers. What is a mulatto? Why do they keep asking her what she is? She isn't anything. So, is that it? You are a mulatto? You know what a mulatto is, don't you? Haven't your parent taught you that word? Approaching with a cart of juice, the stewardess looks up and smiles at Carol. That gives her a rush of courage. Leave me alone, she screams at Mrs. Norton. Passengers stare. The stewardess spills a drink. Mrs. Norton still sits back in her seat, her hands raised, fingers spread. Carol sees people watching. Why do you know? Why do you keep asking me if my dad is Negro? Yes, he's Negro. Okay, okay. Negro, Negro, Negro. Calm down, Mrs. Norton says, reaching over. Don't touch her, the stewardess says. Who are these people? Someone says from across the aisle. Imagine talking to a child like that, and in 1970s? One woman sitting in front of Carol stands up and turns across. Would you like to come and sit with me, little girl? No, Carol shouts. I don't like all these questions. She keeps asking me how I would color my parents in a coloring book. Why do you keep asking me that? Mrs. Norton pleads with Carol to stop. How would you like it if it happened to you? Carol says. So, what are you anyway? What are your parents? How would you color them? Well, I don't care. I don't even care. How would you like to come and sit with me? The steward says, smiling. I will make you a special drink. What you have you ever heard a Shirley Temple? Carol nods enthusiastically. Already she feels better. Clutching Amy, she passes by the Nortons, who swings their legs to let her out. My God, Carol hears Mrs. Norton tell her husband, talk about sensitive. So now let's discuss this part. So what do you find here? How does Carol feel on being labeled as a mulatto? She's upset because she doesn't know what the label implies, just as she does not know about race. She only knows they are trying to degrade her and her parents in some way or the other. So, how does Carol react to their insinuations? How is she able to do it? Carol feels very bad, but she draws courage from the stewardess who smiles at her when she comes with the drinks. Carol screams at the Nortons to leave her alone. She affirms loudly that her father is a Negro. How do the others respond to her behavior? Betty treats Carol as if she has had a breakdown and puts out her hand to calm her. However, the stewardess asks her not to touch Carol because she knows the Nortons have instigated the situation. Even other passengers are upset that the Nortons could needle the child about her parentage in 1970 when racism was no longer an issue. The person sitting in front of her asks Carol to sit next to her, but the girl refuses. Why doesn't Carol move next to that lady in front? Because Carol was regarded as a girl, little girl, and Carol is now an adult standing up for herself, all on her own. She reverses the tables on Betty by asking her the same questions and about how she would color her parents and then telling her she couldn't care less. How do we know the stewardess sympathizes with the child? We find the stewardess invites Carol to sit with her and offers her a special drink, Shirley Temple. So, how do we know the Nortons continued to be racist in their attitude despite the response of the other passengers and the stewardess to the situation? Betty Norton tells Henry that Carol had been oversensitive at the end of the chapter, as if the fault was hers, without realizing that they had been asking her overtly racist questions. So, how does Carol grow up to be an adult when, while she thought she was already one? Carol thought being an adult means being confident, while on her own as she was on the flight. However, she learned the hard way that being adult also meant knowing people who were racist and being able to stand up for what she was as a person. So from here, from this story, we end the story here. But from here, what we realize that when we discriminate between us and them, it is always to see them as inferior to us. Why is it unfair to other people in this manner? What does it say about our attitude towards other people? Color is only one of the ways in which people look down on others. Have you noticed other ways in which people tend to look down on others? Can you see such kind of things happening in your society? Yes, of course. This thing is there everywhere. And we should stop such thing from happening. Looking down on others because of their skin color is degrading humanity. Humanity comes first and then everything. So keep in mind that. With these words, I end over here. Thank you.